I was giving him the pity party. Dad, if I don't drink, I'll feel like I'm going to die. And he looked at me dead in the eyes and he said, so then you die.
This is Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. Those moments when heaven and earth collide and we see God. We see His hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention, inviting us into a closer relationship. Here we share stories of encounter with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions, near-death experiences, big and little God incidents. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. Welcome and Happy New Year. Hope 2020 is just going to be the best yet for you. Thank you so much for listening, whether this is your 90th episode. Yeah, we're up to 90 now. Maybe you've listened to all of them, all 90, or maybe you just got here, I don't know, how long ago?
About half hour ago.
Oh, you literally just...
Yes.
Well,
yep.
Aren't we quick? Aren't we quick?
Yes. Man, when your life is totally committed to God and you say, whatever, Lord, do whatever you want, man, every day's an adventure.
That's Don Peterson from Idaho, but it was just 1 year ago from right now. This was Don Peterson.
One Sunday in early January found me stumbling in the dark. I'd been drinking steadily for 2 days. Walking along in Boise, I was trying to find a way to kill myself again.
Again, drunk again. What on earth happened to Don to get from point A to point B? It took a touch by heaven moment that you'll hear about in just a moment here. Total transformation. So I was looking at her email on Christmas Eve. I'm looking at the email. I'm going, wow, this is... And within minutes, we were talking to each other. And then we just talked to each other again just a little bit ago here on, as I record this, on January 2nd. And she reminded me, her email reminded me of why Christ came, why Jesus came, why there's Christmas, why there was a first Christmas. It was an act of war. That was an act of war against the ruler of this world, as Jesus put it. There's a battle going on over our souls, right? We have two suitors. We have one that says, it's all about you. It's all about whatever you want to do. Let's go do it today. And don't worry about fixing yourself. You can do that tomorrow. There's always going to be a tomorrow, always going to be a tomorrow. And then we have this other suitor, Jesus, who says, it's not about you. It's about me, and it's about everyone around you. You're like third. Now, which one sounds more attractive, And we can all fall in. Day to day, we make that decision. Moment to moment sometimes, don't we? Moment to moment. So this is the story of Don Peterson and this incredible transformation, this remarkable touch by heaven moment. And when everybody else had given up on Don Peterson, everybody had given up. Jesus had not.
Okay, yeah, I was just thinking about that this morning. Early January was the time that I was living with my in-laws. My mother-in-law had told me, she said, you've got my grandkids, you're not a good mother to them, you can't stop drinking, you're making bad choices, bad decisions. I'm going to bring you into my house with your kids, and you can live with me, and we're going to work on you.
And there was a lot to work on. Back in 2009, Dawn had already walked out on her first husband and their 5 kids, just walked away. And now there was the drinking issue and smoking, always this nervous smoking, always a cigarette in her hand. Antidepressants, anxiety pills, she'd been on those for more than 20 years. There was a lot to work on.
Smoking and drinking, I had no desire to quit at that point. I mean, I wanted to stop smoking, but I realized that I just can't do it. So, I'm just going to keep doing it anyway. But in early January, it was more about my drinking. And one weekend, my children and I were with my sister.
How old are they?
Let me see, they were 4 and 6 at the time. And I was drinking all weekend. I mean, I woke up that Sunday morning and my anxiety from drinking the night before was so bad that I did what I've always done and start drinking before breakfast. I just kept drinking all day, and we were helping some friends move, and it's just more drinking. And every time we went somewhere, there was more wine and more alcohol. And by the evening, I barely knew what I was doing. I was supposed to have the children back home, make sure my mother-in-law did not know that I'd been drinking because they had to go to school the next day.
You said they were 4 and 6 then, yes?
Yes.
How do they deal with a mom who's just in this state all the time?
I don't know. And I remember one time I was drunk and I looked at my daughter and she was looking at me and she was sobbing and she said, "Mommy, who are you? who is this person that I'm looking at? And I remember that. So I must have really done a lot of damage to them. And this was just something that I did all the time. And then I would get so drunk that I would try to commit suicide. And then
How would you try to do that?
Oh, I would get drunk, and then overdose on my medications. I was on a lot of different medications, prescription medications from the VA, like easily 15 times the regular dosage that I should have been taking. This is something I did every day for my anxiety, just to maybe feel better for a few hours. And then I would try to go to sleep because I was in so much pain, sleep. But even that evaded me.
The pain being emotional pain or some physical pain?
Large amounts of emotional pain, which now I know was spiritual torment and oppression.
Then came that night when Dawn was just so drunk and stumbling through the streets of Boise, and somehow her friend finding her, getting her back home. But that's when her mother-in-law said, "You're out of here."
The next morning she said, "Well, it's time for you to go. You are unfixable. I was your last chance, and this is it. Everybody's done with you. You've done this too many times. You need to leave."
Dawn would have moved in with her parents, but they didn't like her smoking, and she wouldn't give up her smoking.
I would rather be homeless and be able to have my cigarettes. That's how important that was to me. I needed that. I mean, I had a routine. Okay, every commercial, I go outside and smoke half a cigarette for about 3 minutes. And that gave me something to do because my mind was so restless and so tormented. I could not sit still anywhere and just be at peace and be at rest. I had no peace.
Well,
So
what was it about smoking? I mean, smoking in and of itself, it's bad for your health and everything, but why was that such a critical point to your parents or you? Or what, was that just a symbol of something? Or what?
I think it was the symbol for my parents. They wanted to see some change. My parents were the only ones that at that point that were still hanging in there with me and praying for me. They were not, everybody else had washed their hands and said, "You know what, she's not fixable, we're done." So I packed all my stuff and I found a room in a stranger's house that I didn't know in Ontario, Oregon.
In that room, she had a cot to sleep on. She had internet. She had a television, cigarettes, of course.
Just enjoyed my smoking. Oh, it was just so good to have that freedom. And I just sat on my cot and just wept and wept over the sorrow of, well, here I am again. What am I going to do this time? And I really believe it was the grace of God that said, why don't we try something different? Why don't we try total surrender? And, I started rolling that around in my head. And then Sunday came and I went to church. And I was sitting in this church that I'd never been to before. I didn't say hi to anybody. Nobody approached me, and that's the way I wanted it. I sat in the back, and I remember nothing about that service except for the moment when this revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. And I know it was the Spirit of God that said, what if? I love that question. What if it's not about you living your life the way you see fit and trying to gratify yourself, but living it to honor me? And at that moment, I felt like I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. It's like, that would take a lot of pressure off of me because it's not about, I need to go to college and what do I want to do with my life? It's like I knew right then, this life is not mine to live. It belongs to Jesus because he paid a high price for it on the cross. And so at that moment, I started to feel the first rumblings of freedom in my spirit, in my soul.
But why then, at that moment, in that church, a church she'd never been in before, didn't know anybody there? Dawn had grown up in an evangelical church, and you can kind of hear it in her voice and in her presentation, if you will. But she'll also be the first to tell you that although she had the head knowledge, she didn't have the relationship with Jesus. And here she was in this church, not knowing anybody, first time there, and something clicked. Why then?
I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my mind around it.
Were you at a new all-time low, or was it just another low?
I think it was just another low. I think I just had it, and I thought, well, what am I going to do with my life now? And that thought came into my head of, in all honesty, I need to go back to what my dad said when I was still living with him. I was giving him the pity party. "Dad, if I don't drink, I'll feel like I'm going to die." And he looked at me dead in the eyes and he said, so then you die. And I saw a strength there and a power, that there was that power over my addiction that I'd never seen before. The VA had always taught me, oh, it's a disease. You got to learn to live with it. It's your master, and just, try to live with it. And this was a new approach. I can die before I go back to drinking. And when he said that, it just like, it got me thinking. And so on the heels of that one, God said, what if it's not about living for you, but for me? I just kept thinking about that. Maybe I can just totally surrender.
Do you think he meant physically die or die to self?
Nope.
Or what do you...
Die to self. I knew exactly what he meant. It was, there's an option besides giving in to what you've always given in. Instead of letting it be your master, you be the master and let it die. And even if it kills you, you still let it die, because it would be better to die than to go back, than to feed that monster that's controlling you.
Okay.
And that for me, that was a taste of freedom right there. It was like the ground in my soul was starting to rumble and shake, and things were feeling a little bit different.
You had some kind of awakening.
Yeah,
it's kind of that purpose-driven life book which starts out, it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's not about you, and we want it to be about us. That's just the natural tendency. That's that's the evil one. That's the ruler of this world talking to us. Yeah, it's all about you. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Then what happens?
I went back to my room, and my cycle was every 20 minutes I would go out and smoke a cigarette in the rain, on the steps, in the rain, with the rain falling on me. And I would just sit and weep and weep and weep, and go back in my room and just sit and weep over my wrecked life, over the loss of my children, knowing that my children were crying for me again. And then Monday night, something else happened. I was sitting on the steps with what was going to be the last cigarette I would ever hold in my hand. And I heard this voice, this sweet, sweet, powerful voice wooing me, calling me, saying, again, what if? I love those words. I love those words. What if? What if you're fighting a spiritual battle in the flesh? And something in me was like lightning hit my veins. And I thought, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. And at that point, I surrendered. I said, I'm done. I will never go back to this life. I don't care if I die, and I know it's going to be excruciatingly painful, but I don't care. I am done. God, if you don't fix me, it won't get done. I will die first, waiting for you to fix me. And I took my brand new carton of cigarettes, stomped across the street with so much resolve, and threw them away in a dumpster.
In the rain. Was that in the rain too?
In the rain. Yep. Always in the rain.
Always in the rain. Okay.
Yes. Now I need to stop and tell you something important that the Holy Spirit has shown me recently. I'm standing on a cliff that is sloughing off. It's disintegrating. And I'm looking out into the black unknown, which to me is death. But it's actually being crucified with Christ. It's denial of self and taking up my cross and following him. And I'm hearing, jump, go. This life that you're living on, which was the ground I was standing on, represented my life up to that point. It was disintegrating. It was falling away. And I'm supposed to jump into the unknown blackness, take a leap of faith. And before, what I'd done is I tried to climb down off the cliff and reach out to God's hand, which was a way away from the cliff, and try to get God, but still hang on to all my stuff. And then I'd stand up on the cliff and look glumly out into the distance again, wanting to jump, but being afraid of leaving the familiar, the comfortable, what I knew. And at that point, when I walked across the street and I threw my cigarettes away, and I said in my heart, I completely surrender to you, Jesus. You've got to fix me. You've got to clean me up, and I'm going to die. If I have to die waiting, I'll do it. And what I saw in the Spirit, what he showed me, was that I backed up and I took a running leap and I went all out and I just jumped into the dark unknown, knowing that I was probably going to die. Unknown death, scary darkness, and the Father's hand came out of nowhere and caught me and lifted me up to the heavenly realms. When I woke up the next morning, I usually had to get up at 6 o'clock every morning and start smoking right then. I had the shakes. I had to smoke. I woke up and I looked at the clock and it was 8:04. And I realized I have no cravings. I am effortlessly free of all cravings for a cigarette. And I knew I was the subject of a miracle right then. And I just plopped down on my cot. And it took me, I don't know how long I sat there, but I was just in utter amazement. And the rest of the day was just kind of a blur. Honestly, I don't really remember what I did that day. I think I just sat and just tried to digest what had happened to me because it was so real to me at that point.
Joy, happiness, peace. What were you feeling?
I was very happy. I saw colors that I hadn't seen in years. I heard birds that I hadn't heard for years. My addictions were gone. My sorrow was gone. I'd been on antidepressants for over 20 years, and I knew that God had fixed the ruts in my physiological brain, and I threw all of those meds away and had no withdrawal symptoms from them.
Had you had a drink since church?
No, nope. The last time I drank was before the reason why I had to go into rehab. It was that weekend that my mother-in-law said, you need to leave. That was the last time I ever drank.
To this day?
To this day.
You have no desire? No
desire. Why would I want to when I've got something so much better? I just don't have that desire. I don't even have to think about it. It's just I am so born again, so made new that I'm like a child. My brain has been totally reset to factory settings. God totally healed my brain, and that's why I was able to throw all of my meds away that I'd been taking for 25 years.
This was last year, February 3rd for church. Do I have that right?
Yeah, February 3rd for church, and then it was the Tuesday was the day I was delivered. Wednesday, February 6th, was the day that our divorce was final.
Isn't that interesting?
The timing was interesting, and I remember sitting in the courtroom, and I was so happy. I was just goggle-eyed like a bullfrog in a hailstorm. I was like shaking under the power of the Holy Spirit. Physically shaking, vibrating. I could not help it, and I was so happy. It didn't matter what happened. I know now that the godly thing would be to try to fix our marriage and to fix our family. I will never be the same person again. I will never drink again. And he said, no, I want to go on with the divorce. So at that point, I knew he had divorced me.
He's looking at you on divorce day. He's looking at what he knows is an addictive personality. You got the booze going, you got the cigarettes going, you're a mess, and now you're addicted to Jesus. I don't believe that either. He doesn't believe you, does he? I doubt he believes you anyway.
I'm not sure if it's that or I don't think the problem is all with me so much now. He's not eager to pursue God as hotly as I am, and there's not a lot of people that are, I'll have to admit. But there's been a lot that's happened in this last week that I'd like to talk about.
Yeah.
Was that, all this time I was hanging on to the hope. My ex-husband would want me back and we could be a happy family again. And over again, there was just something about it that was off. And I kept hearing in the spiritual world, he's not for you. I have something better. I've set you apart. I have something better. But I kept chasing after that because I thought, that's all I've ever known. It's scary for me to be alone with God, to be alone without a family, to be a single mom. That's foreign to me. And so I've been chasing that and not letting Corey go. And, we've been, experimenting with reconciliation, but then it was like oil and water. Just there was just no clicking. Well, Saturday night, I got on the phone and I said, Corey, this isn't working. I texted him. I said, I release you. I've got to move on in God. Yes.
Are you back taking care of your kids?
Yes, actually I am. My ex-husband is now working full time. And so the care of the kids has fallen to me, which is great because we have some pretty good praise and worship and Bible reading sessions.
Well,
so
you grew up evangelical. And you still have that spirit. When we hear you talk, we hear that evangelical spirit in you. You can almost see your hands in the air and jumping up and down and singing a little bit here.
Oh, yeah.
That's part of your personality as well. And it fits you.
Uh-huh.
It fits you.
Yeah, I guess it does. I never thought of that. Yeah.
One of the ways the Holy Spirit interjects himself into my life and into the podcast is through music. I was on the radio for 40 years. And so God's way of sending messages is through music, which is kind of ironic because I never paid attention to lyrics. Even when I was on the radio, I never paid attention to lyrics. And so every time a song starts bubbling up out of nowhere, and we know where that nowhere is, I always have to look up the lyrics because I have no idea what these songs are about, even the ones I played a billion years ago. So after we talked, I started hearing a song, and it was like, where did that one come from? And when a song plays over and over again over days, I know there's something going on here. And it's an Adele song. And I looked at the lyrics of this particular song, and I went, I have no idea what this means. And then I listened again to our first interview, and I listened to what you just said. When you talked about sitting there out there in the rain, puffing away, that was your MO, going outside, feeling sorry for yourself, sad, depressed, smoking cigarette after cigarette after cigarette in the rain. You said it was always raining, right?
Yes.
There's this song by Adele is called "Set Fire to the Rain." This one, that one, setting fire to the rain. Spiritualizing the lyrics, of course, we're bringing the Holy Spirit into the picture.
Oh.
Set fire to the rain. You're out there puffing away, smoking your lit cigarette. Set fire to the rain.
Yes, I know that song.
And and the song is about, and this has to do with our daily choice, your choice, my choice, all of our choices, of who we hang with today. We have a choice.
Yes.
We can hang with Jesus. We can hang with Satan. We can think that we're hanging somewhere in between, but generally we're choosing one or the other, moment to moment. Really, moment to moment.
Exactly.
So this song has to do with a girl, Adele, whatever, whoever. The song has to do with she gives her heart to somebody that she thinks, this is good, this is good. And then she realizes this guy is a liar. He's always lying. He's always playing a game, The evil one, right? We spiritualize the lyrics. When I get music, I always spiritualize the lyrics. Who's singing to whom? And setting fire to the rain, when you spiritualize setting fire to the rain, you're bringing the Holy Spirit into the picture against that evil, against that downpour of evil that has been crushing you for years. The lyrics, I sat there going, oh, this is about you being touched by the Holy Spirit. First in church and your mind beginning to work in a way that had never worked before. And then again, outside in the rain, setting fire to that rain. Again, the Holy Spirit, Jesus touching you right there in that moment so that you have done a complete 180 from where you were.
That was given to me by grace. Yeah, I love that. I love that.
It's all grace. It's all blessings. Yes. And you are this amazing 180 transformation of just saying, I'm taking the leap. If this happened, all of this happened a week ago is one thing, but it happened almost a year ago. All of this is over the last year. This is not fleeting. This is not, because as you know, there are a lot of people out there who are like, they're shooting stars. They're just shooting stars where they flare for a moment and then it's over. This is you.
And I've got to tell you that everything that I've said is just such a pitiful, pathetic attempt to describe what's going on in me because it's simply indescribable. What I'm doing, what I've said is just scratching the surface with my little fingernail on the top of a huge glacier of what the Spirit is doing in me. And I could take hours and hours and hours and hours and just talk about what the Spirit is in me and the revelations that He's downloaded in me all the time and what He's done. And just, how every day is a different flavor. Before, I would wake up every morning and it would be the same thing. Constant anxiety, paranoia, agoraphobia, afraid to go outside. And it was the same. Every day was the same. I had my routine to try to get through the day. And now with Holy Spirit, even a year later, every single day has a different flavor to it. Just a little bit of a different flavor to it. But it's a glorious adventure. And every day I wake up and I say, God, I commit this day to you. You do whatever you want through, to, for, from, whatever in me. I'm just going to go after you and I'm just going to praise you and worship you with everything I've got. And you just do whatever you need to do. And I'm finding that every day that I trust Him for my daily needs, just for today, give us this day our daily bread. He provides in ways that I'm not even looking for. every day I get my daily needs met. I don't need to worry about even tomorrow, because when I wake up tomorrow morning, I'm going to do the same thing just for today. That is how he takes care of me financially.
Well, this has been great. Anything else you need to say? What do people need to do? You did a surrender. I mean, if you go back and listen to what the process you went through, you didn't. And here's the deal: you didn't shoot for lukewarm. You didn't shoot for, well, I'll just stick my toe in. You didn't shoot for lukewarm.
Yes.
You went for hot.
Yes. Well, Luke 9:23 says that if anybody desires to follow me, Jesus said, he must die to himself, deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. And that means being willing to die a painful, agonizing death before you pick up that sin again. That's all it is. If you were dabbling in your sin, you're not willing to set your sin down and die because you've denied yourself that sin, and you're willing to die rather than pick that sin up again, and you say, God, I am not going to pick up that sin again. You've got to fix me. I will die waiting for you to fix me. That is the leap of faith that will work a miracle, because God is looking for brokenness. And brokenness is something that God can work with, and that's all I had. I had broken pieces, and I just threw them up at the foot of the cross, and I said, there you go. I'm done. I would rather die than try to put those pieces back together myself. And so when God set me free of that instinct for self-preservation, I rejoiced all the more, because now I don't need things from people. I can truly love people because God alone is my source. No man owes me anything. I don't go to man for anything. If I have a need, I go to God first. And if God doesn't provide it, then I don't get it. But he always does. He never lets me down. He's always faithful.
Well, there you go. Thank you, Don. Out there in the farmlands of Idaho.
And I'm surrounded by pasture land, just like I've always prayed for. And it's a good thing that I don't have neighbors around for miles, because I'm a loud worshiper. And I love to walk down the hallway of my house and shout the name, hey, Jesus! And I can feel the atmosphere change. And, the only thing I scare are the cows and the chickens.
Thank you, Don. Our takeaways today. What did God just say in this episode? Only God could do what happened in this episode today. Only the Holy Spirit, the power of the Holy Spirit, could do what the Holy Spirit did, to take away the booze and cigarettes and the pills that she'd been taking for more than 20 years, just with no withdrawal, just gone.
What if it's not about you living your life the way you see fit and trying to gratify yourself, but living it to honor me?
What a God moment, right? Inside the church and sitting out there setting fire to the rain. That song by Adele, a good reminder again that, we all make wrong choices at times, but when we invite the Holy Spirit in, when we invite Jesus in, when we invite the Trinity in to fix us, and are willing to surrender and willing to go wherever that takes us, you see the outcome there. And right now, Dawn is on the internet. She's all over social media, just sharing her story and all the different Facebook groups and things like that, and evangelizing there. And people are coming to her to say, how did you do this? How did you find your way from point A to point B? So she's evangelizing in her own way using social media. So best of luck, Dawn. Thank you for being our first guest of the new year here in 2020. Thank you so much for listening. Our special Patreon shout-out this week goes to Amy Asif. Thank you, Amy, for your continued support through Patreon. You can do the same, and we certainly would appreciate your financial support. You make it all happen here with your stories and with your Patreon support. You can give us your story at touchedbyheaven.net. Also, the place you can click right through on our Patreon link, or go to patreon.com. And just look for Trapper Jack. And we thank you for your financial support to keep it all going. Thank you so much. And I will see you next week here at Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. I'm Trapper Jack.